I'm Michelle Demers. I am CEO and founder of Boundless Impact Research and Analytics. We're an environmental research and analytics firm that essentially assesses and scores companies for their environmental performance. And we also work with investors, helping them with technical diligence. And we mostly work in industries like energy, transportation, food and ag, water, circular economy, the industries that are all undergoing a massive transformation because of climate change. So a little bit about Boundless. We've been working with companies for about 7 years. We decided to innovate on life cycle assessment. I'm going to talk to you about what that is. It's a really important piece of the puzzle. It's kind of nerdy, it's kind of sciencey, but it's actually doing the actual verification of companies' claims. And if we're going to make the kind of changes we need to make in these industries that are responsible for most of the emissions, we're going to need to change those industries pretty radically and pretty soon. And so we decided to innovate on life cycle analysis to make it more user-friendly so that companies could not have to pay through the nose to do these super highly technical reports, and investors could understand what the heck the reports were saying, basically. So what is life cycle assessment, though? Just so you know, it's called life cycle assessment and it's called life cycle analysis, so I sort of interchange the two. It's been around for 40 or 50 years. It's an internationally standardized methodology, and it is definitely the most reliable way to understand and account for a company's environmental claims. And as you all know, we are living in an era of a lot of greenwashing, so it's really important to do this. And investors want to do this if they're making, multi-million-dollar investments into some of these companies. So what we did was we decided to make it more accessible by reducing the amount of time it takes to do a life cycle assessment. We do it in a matter of weeks versus months. We limited the number of metrics that we're looking at to only the ones that are the most important in an industry, and we turned it into a really investor, customer-friendly report. So we actually translate the results of the LCA so it can be influencing decisions more easily. And so our signature product is called a baseline LCA, and it's 15 or 16 pages. Just by comparison, an ISO-compliant LCA runs 60 to all the way up to 100 pages, depending on how complex the technology is. So, and then we build industry benchmarks on key competing technologies, so you can really compare apples to apples. And that's really useful for companies in order for them to be able to differentiate their product and really be able to see how they can be as competitive as possible within their industry. So this spider chart's a great example of how we simplify complex information. You can see, I believe this is a technology that's making ethyl acetate in a green way. Ethyl acetate is a product in a lot of household goods and makeup and things. And these are the metrics around the various points on the spider chart that we looked at. And as you can see, we look at GHG footprint, but we also look at other important things like particulate matter emissions and ground level ozone formation are both air pollution metrics. And sometimes those metrics are even more important than GHG in terms of differentiating a product. So this shows you how we did benchmarking on a lot of other, this is a biopesticide that we compared to traditional industrial pesticides. And you can see here the company that we assessed is in the green, and the industry competitors are in the blue. And so my team of engineers goes into the scientific literature and builds these benchmarks. And our data is very accurate and very reliable, which is really important in an era where there are a lot of carbon calculators and carbon accounting tools that are based on estimations, cost-based estimations. So I'm going to run through the slides a little quickly because I just wanted to show you guys a few things. We're very good at data visualization and infographics. So I'm just going to show you a few things. So we do GHG assessment is our sort of most basic, as well as our basic where we're just looking at 3 metrics. We do a full assessment where we're looking at 7 or 8 metrics. And then we look at scope 1, 2, and 3 inventories, which is different than a product analysis. It is where you're looking at the emissions across an entire operation. And a lot of larger companies are doing those scope 1, 2, and 3 inventories. Another thing we do that's unique and hopefully helps accelerate investor decisions into these clean technologies is techno-economic analysis. And techno-economic analysis is basically looking at how competitive a technology is according to a lot of different cost analyses. And it's important because you want to understand whether or not a technology can truly scale. How impactful it can be on the environment is really influenced by how scalable a technology is. And it's important to compare it to traditional market dynamics. We also have some really cool things like our Climate 2030 score, where we can take a lot of the data that we've collected in an industry and we can compare it, and we can start to do predictive analytics about which technologies are going to be the most likely to reduce emissions in the long term, and which we see as gaining market share because of that. And we look at both GHG abatement potential and GHG abatement cost when we're calculating our 2030 score. So in this case, in this chart here, we're looking at 4 different sustainable jet fuels. So all the big airlines are wanting to decarbonize their operations by turning to sustainable jet fuel as one of the main strategies. But and here we looked at 4 different kinds, and it looks like HEFA fuel won in terms of scores. And HEFA is hydroprocessed esters and fatty acids. It's essentially cooking oil, turning that into a jet fuel. And just by comparison, alcohol to jet got a 1.8. That's taking corn, that's like ethanol-based jet fuels. So why does this all matter, and sort of understanding the bigger picture? A lot of companies are saying we're going to reduce and be able to abate tons of emissions or kilotons of emissions. That doesn't really matter. It's got to be megatons of emissions. It's got to be gigatons of emissions. Those are the only ones that are really going to be the game changers and are going to help us reverse the kind of global warming that our climate and our planet is experiencing. So we put them into different tiers and we measure them accordingly. And that's also super helpful for investors when they're about to write a $10 million check. Is this company really going to do what it says it can do? They're going to feel a lot more confident. So it's sort of a de-risking tool. We also do things like collect data from LCAs that have been done by other folks and put them through our data integrity scoring matrix, so we can kind of sort of a greenwashing detector, if you will, and we can let a company know if its LCA is solid, or an investor know if a company's LCA is solid. In this case, the company got a good score, 4.8 out of 5. And it's because their data was reliable, it was complete, and it had correlations across time, geography, and technology. In this case, the company got a 2.8 out of 5, not so good. That's like, what, a C minus? So the company just didn't do a very good study, or whoever did the study for the company. Some companies want to take shortcuts, and unfortunately that doesn't end up helping them in the end. And then we have a few other things we do here. GHG scenario analysis, where we can look at where your hotspots are and how you can improve on your footprint by looking at, in this case, we looked at hydro, wind, and solar scenarios. So if anyone has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them after the session. Thanks, everyone.